Aloha folks, and welcome to today's video. We are here at year's end, and it's time for a little bit of reflection and review. A lot of people are probably reviewing the virus that's been going on for the last year, now 2 years. But I would have to say that we have an ongoing battle with pathogens, and there's other side effects in the realm that's currently being outshadowed that needs to be addressed. And so we need to pick our battles. I'm not going to address this battle over here because so many other people are fighting that virus battle. I applaud you. So I want to address this other pathogen battle over here with the world of mold and fungus and bacteria, because all of these things, just like in the virus world, all of these things over here are opportunistic. And if you get beaten down on this side, one of these things might come in. Or if one of these things beats you down on this side, that one thing, or maybe one other thing on this side may come in. So I just want to talk about, the big number, quote unquote, killers. Because as dramatic as this pandemic has been, we are still seeing much larger numbers and growing numbers of things like cancer. And we're not addressing these other pathogens, because what's going on with these other pathogens, I suspect, is a strong contributor to cancers and other leading causes of death. So when you have something like a simple staph infection, which is not so simple, because I was reading some statistics from World War II where people were, because this is the Spanish flu, right? I'm talking about how these things are opportunistic. The viruses, the bacteria, the molds, the funguses, they're all opportunistic. Spanish flu that was raging during World War I was not necessarily killing everybody, but what was happening is they were getting fluid in the lungs, because that's what happens during influenza, is there tends to be some fluid buildup in the lungs. Now, the lungs may not fill up completely, but you may get a secondary infection of, say, a staph, of the fluid in the lungs. And that staph infection, I was reading, had a 2% survivability rate in those people over 50. And this was pre-penicillin, which occurred in 1928 by a Swedish scientist. Penicillin is actually a green mold, and they found that this green mold was basically fighting off, you could say, like, we got tigers, right? These are, instead of giant animals, we are microscopic animals. It's just a bacteria fighting a mold, penicillin versus staph. And so they were finding that the mold was winning. And they also found that the mold didn't appear to harm the human being. So cool, okay. But 5 years later, just 5 years later, 5 years later, compared to when they were using it in, there was a study in World War II, they were starting to use the penicillin, and 5 years later, they were already noticing, about 50% of their patients with the staph were not responding to the penicillin. So already within 5 years, you're having life finding a way. You're finding that the evolutionary battles, the physical battles that the bacteria is fighting against our mold that we're using as an antibiotic, that the penicillin is forcing mutation upon the staph bacteria so that it can continue to survive. And so, the thing is, when you put something like that up against, when you take a mold, a natural mold like penicillin, and put it up against the staph. Well, the staph, 5 years later, it was 50%, but penicillin is rather benign. But, we do have people who are allergic to it. So it isn't completely benign. And now we've taken penicillin and we've made all these synthetic derivatives like methicillin. And so now we have things which are really nasty, like MRSA. MRSA is really way more nasty than the old school staph. And it's because it's a synthetic derivative, semi-synthetic derivative of. So now you've added all these weird things in it and you're making it nasty. It's more inherently toxic, the antibiotic, because it's been altered in these really strange ways. And the thing that it makes it so strange is because when we have these bacteria, molds, and funguses in a lab, we are just pumping it with radiation, because that's what these things do. I mean, we're doing it to ourselves right now. I'm guilty too. I recognize, oh, here I am holding it. I'm in front of my computer. I have an iPad right here too. Like I get it. I'm not sure what to do. So this is the message. Pick your battles. Recognize that these things are being used in the laboratories that go to studying bacteria and mold and funguses. And in order to come up with fungicides and anti-mold products and antibacterial products, we study them in labs, which are full of these massively EMF producing computers and sensors and devices, because they're trying to read all this information too. And so these things are trained to grow under these circumstances. So they love it. They love it. That's part of the reason why people feel so good when they unplug and go into nature, because so many of these other things, I'm not even talking about those things, because those things, they do it too. But these other things, they've been studied and they were born and bred in these labs full of these EMFs, and then so that we could figure out how to kill it. But just, life finds a way, and they come back bigger, better, stronger, and used to these nasty things, loving these frequencies. It's like music, right? You listen to the right music and it's just so attractive and you feel great and it's empowering, right? This, the EMFs is empowering to these things, because that's what they're used to. And so you go out in nature and you unplug and you've just turned off their music. So pick your battles, because one of the things about nature sounds is that's always our music. Happy New Year.